Let me test the Zoom levels. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, those seem to be all right.
That's your founding host of Masters of Scale, Reid Hoffman. He's at his home office with a laptop open and a microphone set up. Two producers are standing by in their Zoom squares.
Let me get the coffee and water. Actually, I guess coffee, not always great on the voice. Well, I'll still have a little bit of it.
He settles into his chair and gets ready to record some voiceover for the show.
Just making sure it works. Here we go. And then this out of the way. QuickTime. And to the little pickups.
Reid turns to the script and starts recording. Often, it's smooth sailing. But sometimes...
That's Jesse Berry, an ornithologist at the Cornell... That's Jesse Berry, an ornithologist at the Cornell Lab. Let me just make sure. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's Jesse Berry, an ornithologist at the Cornell Lab.
Reid is an investor, an entrepreneur, a philosopher, a patriot, and a great friend. But he'd be the first to say he is not a voiceover artist.
Over time, the definition expanded to refer to anyone, real or imaginary, who serves as an
Recording voiceover can be time and labor intensive, even for the pros. At Masters of Scale, we might update scripts at any time as stories develop. So when Reid travels, which you can imagine is quite often, he takes a microphone with him, and he needs a super quiet space wherever he is. Good voiceover work also means getting into the right mindset. When you hit record, you have to match the tone of the story at hand, no matter what's going on in your life. Not to mention everyday hazards like a frog in your throat, a dog barking outside, or suffering from a cold that has you sniffling between sentences. But imagine you could ensure a result like this every time. No stumbles, no X factors.
Over time, the definition expanded to refer to anyone, real or imaginary, who serves as a source of inspirational fuel for the creative process.
That is an AI version of Reid Hoffman's voice. About a year ago, Reid dove into fully cloning his voice through a process powered by artificial intelligence. And like a lot of AI technologies, it has improved dramatically in a remarkably short amount of time. It's basically indistinguishable from human Reid, sitting in real time at the microphone.
I'm Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, partner at Greylock, and your host.
So we want to tell you the story of this technology, to take you under the hood, to better understand it. You'll hear from Reid, from me, from our production staff, and from the voice cloning company we're working with, called Respeecher. Voice cloning is a tool that offers scaling potential for so many things, including this very show. It's also a tool with major implications we must grapple with, not just in audio, but far beyond.
Well, we can talk about AI. We can talk about it.
When most people think about AI, they think about killer robots.
Things are changing every couple of months.
AI is at an inflection point.
It is a switch.
It's like we have power tools now.
And we'll just keep figuring it out.
Helps unlock a whole different approach. Generative AI is the most excited I've been about anything in software since the internet.
It's definitely a super exciting time to be in this space.
All of these things are possible.
Let's try and figure out whether this is actually useful or not.
The tech just shouldn't replace human beings.
Is it the worst thing in the world, or is it the greatest thing in the world?
This is Masters of Scale.
I'm Jeff Berman, your host. One of the goals here at Masters of Scale has always been to democratize lessons in entrepreneurship, rooted in the experience of LinkedIn co-founder and legendary investor Reid Hoffman. We do in-depth interviews with business leaders. The scheduling of and preparation for those interviews can take months. After the interview comes an intensive process of editing, writing, sound design, and recording scripts of voiceover to connect the dots of the episode. The voiceover step can be tough for a lot of reasons. But now we have a full clone of Reid's voice, and we're exploring how to use it on Masters of Scale. This is a synthetic voice trained on the sound and cadence of Reid speaking.
Hi, listeners. If you're interested in experimenting with AI like we are, then I want to invite you and your team to join us this week on February 29th.
It replicates his voice, but it doesn't generate original content. As an early adopter of new technology, Reid not only cloned his voice, he also made a generative video version of himself called Reid AI.
Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm an AI-generated version of Reid Hoffman, his digital twin. My thinking and everything I am saying comes from a custom GPT that is based on 20 years of Reid talking and making content.
Reid
So I've
appears
read
on
all
a
his
split
books,
screen,
watched
going
his-
back and forth on camera with an expressive, vivid digital twin.
So first, I'm going to challenge Reid AI with some questions to see what it can do. Let's take a real piece of work from me, blitzscaling. I wrote a 336-page book. And how do you explain it in one sentence to a 5-year-old?
For a 5-year-old, blitzscaling is like building the biggest tower super fast before anyone else, even if it gets a bit messy, so you can be the leader of the tower game.
As a listener, you might already be trying to figure out in your head which Reid is which. Is what you're hearing one of several synthetic versions, or is it Reid, live and in person? Well, I sat down with Reid, human Reid, to talk more about why he's exploring all of this so ambitiously.
Ready when you are.
Hi, Reid.
Hey, Jeff.
We are getting together after you released kind of a mind-blowing video of you interviewing an AI version of yourself and that AI version of yourself interviewing you. I'm curious how the idea for that came about.
So the idea was, obviously, most of the time that people have been talking about digital twins, most of that discussion has been in the fear and, oh my God, it's going to be the end of Hollywood and all this disaster and storm is coming. So the idea was to start exploring what some of the positive use cases are. Sharing the journey, sharing the learning, sharing the exploration with an emphasis on what can be possible and what can be positive. But of course, navigating concerns and experiences as well.
For as long as you've been hosting Masters of Scale, I know it's been a labor of love, but there's a labor part of it. And so could you talk a little bit about what we're experimenting with a synthetic Reid AI voice?
Look, if I can figure out how to have tools make it a lot more efficient for me in terms of how I'm doing work and all the rest, that's a good thing. I use a phone for that. I use computers for that. If you say, well, look, why am I using this? Is, well, because I can address like a set of commentary that otherwise I don't have time for. Or I can show some lens into the future, which is helpful to our audience. Or I can go into more depth and produce more content that hopefully some number of people will really like that I wouldn't otherwise have time to do. Because by the way, I sometimes have somebody who writes a speech for me and I give the speech. And no, I don't go, and by the way, sentence X was from Susan and sentence Y was from Bob. I go, okay, I'm giving the speech and I've worked with a team to hopefully get it right. But like, you don't have to go, Susan generated line 3 and Bob generated line 7 or GPT generated line 10.
So when you think about taking a synthetic AI voice and being able to approve a script and then have it read and have it be indistinguishable for the audience, that feels like a tremendous use case here.
1,000%. The general principle is if what you're doing is legitimately trying to do more or valuable things for other people, then I think you will be broadly on the right path.
An AI voice clone allows Reid and Masters of Scale to fulfill our mission of getting more business lessons and storytelling out in the world. It does have trade-offs, and we'll get to those, but there's also value, including for our producers.
Delivering successful voiceover is such a remarkable talent and skill.
That's our Masters of Scale executive producer, Eve Tro.
But there's also just the statistical probability that someone who has brilliant things to say and important lessons to share will be good at that specific skill of reading text from a page and delivering it in the voice. It's very low. And it can take an hour to deliver a couple paragraphs. Oof, it's hard work.
Also, there's the matter of vocal quality. Here's producer Alex Morris.
I'm thinking about specific times where Reid has had a cold and we've said, maybe we should pause recording because even though this is naturally, organically Reid right now speaking, it doesn't sound like the Reid massive scale Reid voice that we know.
Then there are the last minute pickups.
We're talking about accurate information here, whether it's a lesson on business or to get the pronunciation of someone's name. You may have to, and I have had to, wake up a host at a very odd hour, call someone, text them at 2 a.m. so that they can say 3 words so that the story going out can be accurate. And is that the best use of everyone's time and energy? To me, if there were a magic bullet that could change just those 3 words so that they could be correct in the host's voice, I think that would be a good use of that magic bullet.
Well, that magic bullet seems to be here, and it's courtesy of a company based in Ukraine called Respeecher. They're the ones who cloned Reid's voice, and they do not underestimate the impact of their work.
The basic limitation of a human being in front of microphone is now removed.
That's Alex Serdiuk, founder of Respeecher and their CEO. The idea for Respeecher started at an IT hackathon in Kiev. Most participants were focused on visual recognition, but Alex and his co-founder had a different goal.
To create a very simple model that would let one person speak in the voice of another person.
They won the hackathon, and a few years later, their model grew into Respeecher, a company that creates synthetic versions of actual human voices. A lot of their projects involve TV and movies, remarkably, often bringing dead voices back to life.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's yours an honor to be here with you all on America's Got Talent.
We were on America Got Talent in the voice of Elvis Presley.
I have to tell you, we're going to do a couple of our biggest records for you now.
We were at Super Bowl in 2021 in the voice of Vince Lombardi.
Because it's not whether we get knocked down, but whether we get knocked up.
Even actor Jimmy Stewart, whose voice has been revived for a bedtime story on the meditation app Calm.
Well, hello. I'm James Stewart. But, well, you can call me Jimmy. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story.
Respeecher works closely with companies that own these brands and intellectual property. And there are applications beyond entertainment. Respeecher helps individuals with medical complications.
We can change quality of lives of people who have speech disorders. Back in 2022, we tried our first rough real-time models on patients with laryngectomy.
And those who'd be in danger if their real voices were heard.
You often need to anonymize victims of a crime for a documentary or whistleblowers. Usually it's being done with voice morphers, which make it sound bad, like really bad. It's really hard to understand the sound and emotions.
From his home in Kiev, Ukraine, Alex can imagine Respeecher helping victims of war crimes tell their stories more safely. And he's proud of his company's ethics. He said they've had no reported cases of misuse, and they do not take clients for political ads. Last year, Reid hired the team at Respeecher to create a synthetic voice for himself. There are hundreds of hours of Reid hosting Masters of Scale, so data was not a problem. But Respeecher doesn't turn text into speech. That's the technology behind vocal assistants that might sound more robotic, like Alexa and Siri. Respeecher uses human voiceover artists who deliver the lines.
We understood that, look, let's take from humans what they do best. Humans are amazing in performing because we were born with this vocal apparatus and use it on a daily basis.
Voiceover artists perform with emotion, unique pauses, and other quirks in their voices. Then that audio file gets a filter, powered by the AI model, to sound like the actual person you want to replicate. Here's an early draft of Reid's synthetic voice.
For Isaac Newton, it was an apple falling from a tree that supposedly led him to formulate the law of universal gravity.
A little stuffy, right? A bit off. Here's a further iteration from Respeecher.
For Benjamin Franklin, it was a key on a kite string struck by lightning in a thunderstorm that proved electricity could be transferred and stored.
Deeper, more casual, more like Reid. The original use case for this was to make an audiobook, specifically Reid's 2023 work called Impromptu, Amplifying Humanity Through AI. So using an AI voice to record a book about AI makes sense, right? Listeners got the voice of Reid without the dozens of hours it would have taken him to record reading it. Here's a sample of how it turned out.
My query to GPT-4 was not the first time I'd asked an LLM to create a light bulb joke for me. Earlier GPTs can freeze up like an amateur at an open mic night. Reid: how many restaurant inspectors does it take to change a light bulb? GPT-3:
only one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
That robot should keep its day job.
But the technology has come even further since then.
When we did the book, we used models we most probably don't use anymore. So when we have to listen to a sound we created a couple of years ago, we really feel bad. We want to remake the voice. And that's the case when we could reach out to a production company and just say, can we please do it again? Just replace the vocal track. We would do it for free. We just want it to be better on the current level of quality.
Coming up, the Masters of Scale team does a test drive with the latest version of Respeecher.
And so, how braced do you want me? More than normal?
And we ponder the vast implications. That's after the break. Okay, before we get even deeper into the world of Reid's vocal clone, it only seems fair to give it a name. Reid, you've referenced your digital twin. Is that how we should think about an AI-generated Reid voice, or would you want us to think about it differently?
Digital twin's okay. It wasn't really the language I generated. That was the team doing it. It's kind of a little bit of an industry parlance that I think is a little strange. You know, it is good to have something that is both like Reid, but also Reid-ish, because there's English, Reid-ish. Ish is kind of a suffix. People say, do you think that this is a complete catastrophe? It's like, well, ish.
Love it. Reid-ish it is. Now, to better ponder what we're truly getting into, producers Eve Tro, Juliette Luini, and Alex Morris logged into our Respeecher account and got to work.
Okay, I am rolling again. So we're making these recordings, and then we're going to feed them into Respeecher. Okay. It's kind of nerve-wracking.
I know. I'm like sweating like Reid probably does in his recording sessions.
Alex, are you ready to play Reid Hoffman?
I'm ready.
Our producers tried out what is somewhat awkwardly called the speech-to-speech process, hearing how realistic Reid-ish sounds filtered through each of their voices.
I'm Reid Hoffman is a strange thing to say because I am not Reid Hoffman, but this is the technology we're thinking of using, so I'm going to go for it. I'm Reid Hoffman,
co-founder of LinkedIn,
partner at Greylock,
and your host. And I believe...
And I believe...
We've uploaded our audio files, all 3 examples. Now, tell me where we're at.
Now it is converting our original audio file into Reid Hoffman. And it'll take like 5 minutes, hopefully.
That's like kind of surprising to me, like 5 minutes. I genuinely thought it was going to be something where it's like 24 hours and then they send you some sort of a file. Like, I am shocked. Like, that's like pretty close to real time.
Yeah, it's about the amount of time you would need to upload a big audio file and convert it to any other format.
It's ready. Do you want to just play it?
Let's do it.
I'm so excited to hear how it picks up Alex's accent.
I'm Reid Hoffman,
co-founder of LinkedIn, partner at Greylock, and your host. And I believe you need to amplify the unique stories of your community and your customers. Doing so will build a foundation of trust, loyalty, and enduring impact.
Wow. Okay, my first thought is that hearing Reid's voice, but with my specific accent, it sounded to me like he was like a London gangster. It was like a Guy Ritchie film. I was like, he was like one of the Cray twins. I'm honestly so impressed at how I'm literally like, that was Reid Hoffman with a British accent. If he was making fun of me, he would do that. Obviously, for an American to do a British accent is a very safe voice that you can do, right? In terms of cultural appropriation. We're going to have to start having conversations about where's the line, what can you do? And I don't know, like, what feels insensitive?
Yeah, that's a good point. It brings up these issues of authenticity. You can pretend to be another nationality, another gender that you are not. And it's so easy. As a media producer, I'm just immediately so excited about the technology that I need someone to prompt the discussion of the dangers of it, like that question of authenticity and identity. And then I think, oh, right, yes, that's right. This could be used for other things that are not so great. But because we're so focused on what we're aiming to use it for, I think it just makes me pretty giddy. Okay, let's hear yours.
I'm Reid Hoffman,
co-founder of LinkedIn, partner at Greylock, and your host. And I believe you need to amplify the unique voices of your community and your customers. Doing so will build a foundation of trust, loyalty, and enduring impact.
Okay, we are all holding back explosive laughter right now. That was unpleasant to listen to.
I wouldn't say it was unpleasant to listen to. It just didn't sound like Reid, but
he was like, okay, well, here I go, I guess.
I know. No pressure. Okay. I'm Reid. It is rude to say.
But it also did sound like my voice had a undertone of fear in it, which I don't know if that comes across day to day, but for some reason...
Yeah, you're rethinking everything. You're thinking, do I sound like a fearful woodland creature in my everyday conversation? No, I don't think you do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's nuts is I think I thought this was going to feel like we're doing an impression of Reid Hoffman, but it actually felt like Reid was doing a mean impression of us. You know?
Yes, that's so accurate.
Should we hear the other one? I'm Reid Hoffman,
co-founder of LinkedIn, partner at Greylock, and your host. And I believe you need to amplify the unique stories of your community and your customers. Doing so will build a foundation of trust, loyalty, and enduring impact.
Wow. I can tell that it's me because I know how I say things and also my cadence. But I don't know. What'd you guys say?
I want to play with the pitch and see if I can move the pitch down because I think you, Eve, did a very good Reid Hoffman, actually. So I clicked a plugin and it says regeneration settings, pitch shift, and it has a scale from -12 all the way to +12. And we can play around with this scale to change the pitch. If we did like a -6, I feel like it would be really good.
I feel like that's going to sound like spot on, actually. So maybe we should try that now.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm Reid Hoffman,
co-founder of LinkedIn, partner at Greylock, and your host. And I believe you need to amplify the unique stories of your community and your customers. Doing so will build a foundation of trust, loyalty, and enduring impact.
That's good. That was really good. I feel like you get the sort of downward ending of sentences like Reid does, and that's where it really sounded like him.
That, to me, was pretty spot on. I think that's the best one so far, for sure.
Picture a vast library with sections for every genre you can imagine. You can find escapism in the romance and sci-fi sections, points of reflection in memoir and poetry.
I, to be quite honest, still don't know how I feel about it. I think we were in a really interesting position because, you know, we're working with one of the pioneers of AI technology. It means we're encouraged more than I think most places to kind of experiment with it. Even when you're experimenting, I think it still feels like that there's stakes there, and we wanted to make sure that we were always fully conscious of what we were doing and what we were creating.
One of the ways that we're putting guardrails on the use of the technology is that the script is still written by writers, researched by researchers, vetted by Reid, and signed off on editorially. And we're really putting a lot of importance on that and feeling that that's a big part of the integrity that gives us license to use Respeecher, because we are really thinking of it as a technical production tool rather than displacing any intellectual or creative labor.
I think that's a great point, and I think that is a really important line to draw.
Staff writer Dan Nealon chimes in on that front.
Because generative AI that is creating content, gets a lot of the headlines. When people hear AI, that's immediately what they think of. They think of a model that is producing written word or audio or video, whatever it is, underlining that the AI we are using is purely a production tool, and the intellectual content of the show is remaining the same and is remaining directly tied to Reid. Really making sure the audience understands that is a huge thing for me in particular as a creative and as a writer. Is I want people to know we're not handing over the keys to the car. We're just like, I can't extend this metaphor anymore, changing the paint job.
Associate producer Masha Makotunina was also concerned about ethics.
Even in the English language, there is a phrase, "You've got my word." Maybe it was read, maybe it was approved by you, but not technically said by you. And suddenly, it's a Pandora box. But my relationship with this technology also was affected when I heard the way Reid talks about it, and when I hear the case that Reid makes for the use of his voice, the person whose voice we are using being so enthusiastic about it. I think it's the main puzzle piece that is important for this case.
Reid's been releasing digital twins of himself into the world one by one. Whether it's our Reid-ish voice from Respeecher or the full generative video presence he calls Reid AI from 11 Labs and Hour One.
The value is you can do a bunch of things where I can have superpowers that I don't. For example, I would love to speak more languages. I am not going to spend the time in order to do it. But the ability to say, hey, I've got content that might be interesting or useful, like about entrepreneurship in a number of different languages, to be able to make that more humanized into what is Reid like when he speaks Chinese or French or Italian or Spanish or German. All of those things are, I think, good things, as opposed to the, hey, I can care less and pay less attention. It's so that I can actually accomplish more in ways that matter for people. That's, I think, the general use of everything from Reid AI down to synthetic voices.
Even for the positive use cases, the deployment of a synthetic voice clone raises important questions around disclosure, whether and when people should know they're hearing AI-generated audio. This entire behind-the-scenes episode exists because we are committed to transparency. But those standards are hardly codified in our industry. One of the big questions that we're wrestling with, and I know you're wrestling with, and hopefully everyone in this industry is wrestling with, is what do the listeners have a right to know? So when you think about like a listener's bill of rights, what do you think is in that?
One principle is truth-telling / anti-deception. If you are using a digital twin of your image or voice, it should be signaled in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be like glaring red lights in the background, right? But clearly not hidden. I don't think it has to be like an exact accounting. These 3 sentences were non-digital Reid, and these 3 sentences were Reid himself. And it's like, no. You can choose how deeply you go. It's just kind of more of a, okay, you're being forthright with me about how you're producing.
Is that sort of an equivalent to almost a names have been changed to protect the innocent disclaimer at the top of a film or something like that? Is that how you think about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or this is based on real events, but has been fictionalized. It's like, okay, great. You're making sure that I don't go, it is all real, right? Or it is all fiction. You'd have to sort it out. If it matters to you, you're going to have to look into it some. It's a question of, do you stand by it? Movies don't go, and there were computer graphics in this film. It's like, we all know there's computer graphics. They don't actually say this film or that film or that, because it's a natural part of the production process. If something's generated, says Reid says X, and Reid never looked at it, then it's like, well, we can't then say Reid said X, right? Like, we say Reid says X all kinds of time. We've done it at Masters of Scale for every single episode, which has been written by a writer. Just to be clear, this is not new ground for us. Look, do I own it in that way? And is it authentic offering to people? And that really, really matters. Are we legitimately and with high integrity trying to be really, really good to our community and our listeners?
If one thing is clear, we are not underthinking this. We have this groundbreaking technology ready to go. We have sign-off, even enthusiasm from the source. We are going to use it, and we are going to disclose it. Whether that's in the episode audio, the show notes, or some embedded metadata option that comes along, we don't yet know. That conversation is just starting. We hope you'll stay tuned. I'm Jeff Berman. Thank you for listening.
This is Reid-ish, signing off. Or is it? No, it is. I've come a really long way. Masters of Scale is a Wait What original. Our executive producer is Eve Tro. The production team includes Tucker Legursky, Masha Makatunina, and Brandon Klein. Special thanks to Juliette Luini, who produced this episode. Mixing and mastering by Aaron Bostonelli and Brian Pugh. Original music by Ryan Holiday. Our head of podcast is Lital Malad. Visit mastersofscale.com to find the transcript for this episode and to subscribe to our newsletter. And to read our team's proposed standards for AI in audio, it's mastersofscale.com/pledge.